Hello, hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore entities of the unexplained, supernatural, paranormal, and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. And today, today we are going kind of a different direction. We've done the black-eyed children before on the show. If you missed that episode, let me see. Let me see if I can drop a link to that. Yeah, black-eyed children. The BEKs, black-eyed kids, was something we did cover fairly recently. But those aren't the only colorful kids out there. And I thought that today I would, I didn't think today. I thought I would add it to the poll is actually what happened. Let me show you. So, we run a poll every week to see what you guys want to see on Cryptic Corner, right? And when we do, is that the one? No, that's crazy. That's showing you all my backstage. Get out of there. That's not for you guys to see. That's how the sausage is made. That's the wrong one. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this one. This'll fix it. You always got to start off with a flub, right? There we go. All right. So we run a poll every week. Run a little poll. Usually we have 4 options to see what we want to cover that week. This week had 3 humanoids on it, which is kind of rare, but this is the mini hootnie, which is the Hawaiian Bigfoot. The Trinity Alps giant salamander, a alleged giant salamander from the mountains of California. Valiant Thor, a mysterious, allegedly extraterrestrial figure who was quite influential in the direction our country took, according to folklore. And then the last one, of course, was the Green Children of Woolpit. Now, the Green Children of Woolpit is, very folklorish, I guess. But there's a lot of variety and veracity to some of the aspects of the story that make it worth covering. Like, some of the people were actual real people, and but this took place a long time ago, so it's gonna be varied. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it right now. So, decided to go with Eerie Vault Strange Encounters UK, real voice, because it wants to make sure you know that it's not a AI voice, which I appreciate because it saves me time. But let's look at the kind of content that they put out. We got Inhuman Encounters in Britain, Black Shuck, Britain's Werewolf Problem, interesting. The Hexen Heads, of course, we covered that recently too. The Dechmont Woods incident, UFO case. The Devil's Footprints, the single file row of devil footprints. Woolpit, good. Yes, we are covering the children of Woolpit. Absolutely, the Green Children, and this is the guy that's going to read the story to us. Yeah, and I think it says AI art, but the story is what's important. So let's just dive in. And you have to let me know how the audio is on this too. All right.
The village of Woolpit in Suffolk is the setting for an absolutely fascinating tale that took place during the 12th century. The village and the surrounding countryside were rural and agricultural, with life largely revolving around the cycles of the seasons, the church.
Spooky, that's because you are the werewolf problem. Why do you think you wake up every morning after a full moon with tattered clothes and barefoot and muddy? Why do you think that is, Spooky? Werewolf problem.
And local feudal systems. Woolpit is actually derived from the old
Right,
English term wolf pit.
I gotta grab my
meaning,
stuff. I'll be right back.
surprisingly, wolf pit. These were deep traps that were dug into the ground intended to catch wolves that threatened the livestock and therefore the livelihood of local farmers. Wolves, which were common throughout medieval England, were considered a serious threat. These pits were simple constructions, holes dug deep enough so that once a wolf fell in, it just wouldn't be able to climb back out. The traps were baited with carrion, camouflaged with branches and leaves to lure wolves onto them. Once trapped, the wolves could be killed by the villagers, protecting the community and its animals. It was in this setting, during the late summer harvest, that something unusual happened. The villagers, busy gathering the crops, noticed movement near one of the old wolf pits. Upon closer inspection, they discovered 2 young children, 1 boy and 1 girl, standing at the edge of the pit. What immediately struck the villagers was not just their sudden appearance from nowhere, but the strange colour of their skin. These children were green.
All right, I let him ramble on for a little bit. I have to pop in and say something now because I can't just watch his video and profit off that, of course. But my coffee has arrived, so small favors. And I got donuts again for my roommates and me, so I'm gonna actually send a medication. I'm gonna send a message. I'm gonna say I got some donuts. Yum. I wish I didn't have to talk to the guy. He's about to walk away, though. It's like he's only been here a minute. Anyway, getting distracted. Yeah, it does explain a lot, Spooky. That's what I'm saying. That's why you're so spooky, too, because if you've seen American Werewolf in London, ghosts follow werewolves around. Ghosts are the people they eat. So, yeah, that's why you're so spooky.
Their skin an unnatural shade that the villagers had never seen before. In addition to their green skin, the children were dressed in unfamiliar clothing. The fabric and style were unlike anything the villagers recognised, which raised questions about where exactly these children had come from. Moreover, the children spoke in a language that none of the villagers could understand. The boy and the girl were clearly frightened, their eyes wide, darting between the villagers, and their hands clung to each other as though seeking protection. It was clear that they just didn't understand where they were, nor did they recognise the people standing around them.
Good morning.
In the close-knit community of Woolpit, where every face was known and every family had a place, the sudden appearance of these 2 unknown children caused an incredible stir. Word of the discovery spread quickly.
Now, I mean, to be clear, Woolpit's not like some backwoods place, right? It's like right here in what is this? It's Essex, right? Yeah, like in the heart of Essex. Not far from Ipswich. It's right here. Still exists as a little town, so. But yeah, if a little town like that would have had their own sort of lordship and stuff that dictated how things like this would be handled.
Through the village, and it wasn't long before more villagers came to see the green-skinned children for themselves. The sight was so unusual that it defied simple explanation, and with the villagers unable to communicate with the children, they were left with far more questions than answers. Unsure of what to do next, the villagers...
Is Essex kind of rural? And I thought Essex was more like the urban type area. Am I wrong? I could be wrong. I'm wrong about lots of stuff.
Decided to take the
I'm wrong 3 times before I even get my coffee.
children to someone who might be able to help. In a time when the local nobility played a key role in the governance and protection of the community, it was natural for villagers to turn to Sir Richard de Calne. As a knight and a figure of authority, Sir Richard held influence in Woolpit and the surrounding area. He was known to be a man of good standing, connected to the church and involved in local affairs. If anybody could make sense of this, it would be him. Arriving at Sir Richard's home, the children were placed under his care. The household attempted to feed the children, offering them the usual fare of bread and meat and other foods typical of the medieval diet. However, the children refused all the food that was placed before them, and despite their obvious hunger, they seemed unable or unwilling to eat anything.
Have you seen what people in medieval Europe were eating? Especially in UK. I mean, they're probably offering these kids like haggis and stuff. Ew. No, I've never had haggis, but like the idea of it is could be off-putting. And the smell of a lot of foods could be off-putting. So I don't blame kids from a foreign land for being off-put about the the offered fare of the medieval villagers. What, no potatoes? No, because this is the 12th century or 13th century. Potatoes came from the New World, so potatoes would not enter into the picture until after 1492. So now, no potatoes, no tomatoes, but apparently green beans.
Offered by their hosts. This refusal added another layer to the puzzle. The children's rejection of food wasn't a matter of simple dislike. It seemed to stem from a absolute...
Wait a second. I just think I found a hole in the story here, but we'll get to it in just a second.
...familiarity with the items that were presented. As the days passed and the children grew weaker, Sir Richard's household became increasingly concerned. The green-skinned children, who had already arrived in a state of disorientation and fear, were now at risk of starving.
I like how the artist just like, oh yeah, they have pointed ears too. They had elfy ears just to make them seem a little bit more otherworldly.
It was clear that something needed to be done, but without knowing their language or understanding their needs, it seemed impossible to help them. The villagers and Sir Richard's household could only watch and hope for a solution to present itself. Finally, a breakthrough came by accident. The children were shown green beans, still in their pods, fresh from the fields, to the relief of those caring for them.
You know what bombshell Miss Bree has for you today? You know, I just mentioned that potatoes are a new world crop, that there were no potatoes in the UK until after 1492. Did you notice that when I mentioned tomatoes are a new world crop, and there were no tomatoes in the UK before 1492? Well, my beauties and bees, I have a bombshell about green beans. There were no green beans in Woolpit in the 1300s. There just weren't, because green beans come from Central and South America. They too are a New World crop.
The children immediately recognized the beans and ate them with apparent eagerness. It seemed that despite their earlier refusals, the green beans were a food familiar to them. While the girl's health
maybe these were Aztec children,
began to improve, her brother remained weak. Despite the care he received, he grew increasingly ill. Not long after the children were baptized, a common practice in medieval England, especially in cases where illness or death seemed imminent, the boy
maybe that wasn't
away.
the bombshell that I thought it was going to be about the green beans. But I hate to throw a freaking big ass monkey wrench into this video 5 minutes in, but come on now. Yeah, I'm surprised they said, oh, they fed them corn, because green beans. When you think of a new world crops, the corn, tomatoes, squash, potatoes are the crops you think of. Like the corn and squash are two of the three sisters. What's the other of the three sisters? It might be beans. It might be green beans. Beans, squash, and corn. Yeah. Obviously, these kids came from America. Yeah, and they probably had like Jersey accents, like New Jersey. They're probably like, forget about it. They're like, hey, you want something? We don't want none of that stinking haggis.
Sister to carry on the mystery of their arrival. The girl, as she regained her strength, began to learn the local language. Slowly she adapted to her new environment, though the questions surrounding her and her brother's origins remained unanswered. As the weeks passed and her ability to communicate improved, she would eventually lose her green colour, and her skin looked much more human. She would one day tell a story of where
you calmed She-Hulk down. That's why you gotta say, sun's getting real low there, big gal. And like, what's her paw? Then she'll turn white. Yeah. This could be a metaphor for colonialism too, or for gentrification.
they had come from, but her account would only deepen the mystery that had already fascinated the villagers of Woolpit. As the girl learned the local language, she began to reveal more about her origins, telling the villagers of a place she called St. Martin's.
See, and that's the thing too. Like, I'll watch video upon video of these cryptic corner topics that I cover. Watch videos after videos. I'll read articles and stuff in preparation, and sometimes the most obvious stuff that sets the story tightly into the realm of fiction just flies over everybody's heads. How does nobody who's researched this story thought, hey, how could they feed the kids green beans when green beans didn't exist in the UK at this time?
Land. According to her account, this land was very different from Woolpit and the surrounding countryside. In St. Martin's Land, the sun never fully rose, and the light was always dim, casting the entire world in a perpetual twilight. It was a strange, shadowy place, where the people lived in a state of half-light, never experiencing the full warmth and brightness of the sun. The girl described her homeland as a place divided by a great river. On one side of the river there was the land where she and her brother had lived, bathed in twilight. On the other side there was a land of brilliant, blinding light, a place they had never visited, but which they had been told about. The people of St. Martin's Land, the girl explained, were like...
You are right, Aunt Jur. I should not be allowing people to hear my throat muscles working without paying that extra fee. So...
her and her brother with the same green skin and unfamiliar customs. One day, while herding their father's cattle, the children had heard a strange sound, like the ringing of bells. Drawn to the sound, they followed it into a cave, venturing deeper and deeper into the darkness. And before they knew it, they'd emerged on the other side, disoriented and confused.
So they had cattle. Was the cattle green too? Green cattle?
Finding themselves in the bright, unfamiliar world of Woolpit. The journey through the cave had been sudden and inexplicable, and they had no memory of how they had crossed from their world into this one.
Doo-doo-doo.
The story of the Green Children did not remain confined to the village of Woolpit. It was recorded in two separate chronicles written by medieval historians William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall. These Latin texts...
What are you saying, John? The kids were green from smoking too much tobacco. I do remember my first cigarette turned me pretty green. Yeah, I remember that too. I remember my first cigarette. Of course, I remember my first time like really smoking some weed too. I was laid out in the grass for like 45 minutes just staring at the stars. It was a love affair that never ended, I'll tell you right now. Don't eat green beef. What about green eggs and ham? Would you eat green eggs and ham?
Provide the primary sources for the tale, and their preservation has ensured that the mystery of the Green Children continues to be studied and debated.
Good morning, Theo.
After the events took place. William of Newburgh, a monk and historian...
Europeans introduced children to the New World. Before 1492, there were no children here. That is an interesting hypothesis. I think there's some mummies and stuff of kids, but those were obviously planted by the Illuminati to throw us off of the true history. And green chicken and pigs for green eggs and ham. You can, we did this experiment when I was in science class in junior high. Like, you take the dye and you inject it into the egg, right? And your chick will come out with that color of feathers. So we had it. Obviously, they molt out into regular chicken colors, but like when they're little, though, if you inject the dye into the eggs, we had pink and green and blue and purple and orange chicks. Yeah, it was really fun to do. But yeah, they molt out of it, of course. But you can make green chickens, though. I don't think that would work with a pig, though. Now, there are dogs. Oh my gosh, I should bring this up. The green puppies. Not from Blue's Clues. Green puppy. It's a rare but harmless phenomena. But we'll bring that up. Just real quick.
We knew that she was different right away.
Okay. So, you see this little green puppy here.
We knew that she was different right away. With light-colored dogs, it is common to have a little bit of green or maybe a few spots, but then the mom cleans them up and it's gone. But what happened with Shamrock, when it was this deep, dark, rich lime green, I thought, well, I'll get some water on it.
One of the other puppies has some green to it too.
Cloth, and we'll clean up. That green was not going away. That is not common at all. In fact, we've talked to our vet about it. She has never seen anything quite like that. She was exposed to Billy Verdon in the womb, and that caused the green to come. It's a green bile salt, and she was exposed to a lot of it. It was pretty vibrant for about 3 weeks, and then for another couple weeks, it was fading, and then now she's where just a little bit here and there. So we waited about 4 weeks to share Shamrock with the world, and so we just wanted to make sure that she was okay. She is healthy, she's happy, she is feisty.
Shamrock, such a cute name. All right, yeah, I just wanted to show you that there are reasons why, a mammal might come out green, but not the green wouldn't last this long. All right. Where were we? Here we are.
Was known for his skepticism of fantastical stories, yet even he found the account of the green children compelling enough to include in his chronicle. William's account is brief, but it's detailed, describing the discovery of the children, their green skin, and the strange tale of their origins in St. Martin's Land. Despite his usual caution in reporting supernatural events, William seems to have taken the story seriously. Ralph of Coggeshall.
So I understand that, like, if you're exposed to a lot of gamma radiation, though, too, when you have an emotional reaction, it can turn you green. But I've never actually seen that play out in real life.
Abbott and chronicler wrote a more extensive account of the green children, offering additional details about their behaviour and the circumstances of their discovery. Ralph's version of the story includes descriptions of the children's refusal to eat, their eventual adaptation to their new environment, and the girl's account of St. Martin's Land. Like William, Ralph recorded the events with a sense of curiosity, preserving the story for future generations. Both William and Ralph's chronicles reflect the medieval mindset, in which the boundaries between the natural and supernatural worlds were quite fluid. Strange events were often seen as signs from God, or as manifestations of the unknown forces that shape the world. The inclusion of the Green Children's story in these respected chronicles suggests that the events in Woolpit were considered significant enough to be remembered, even if they could not be fully explained. The Latin texts of William and Ralph remain the foundation of all later interpretations of the Green Children, and over the centuries these chronicles have been studied and analysed by historians, folklorists, even scientists.
Jennifer Walters doesn't need the emotional trigger. She just chooses to change. Because she has control over her emotions, though. Has more control over her emotions, where Bruce did not. My green eyes turn blue when I'm pissed off. My eyes change. I have hazel eyes that change color no matter depending on what I'm wearing. So some days I'll have look like I have blue eyes. Some days look like I have green eyes or gray eyes. Even golden eyes. Only eyes I don't have ever is brown eyes, which is kind of weird because that's the most common eye color. But brown eyes can be so beautiful though. I love deep dark brown eyes. Look like you're looking into a forest at night.
Each seeking to understand the meaning behind the mysterious events that they describe. The story of the Green Children has therefore given rise to numerous theories about their origins, ranging from the mundane to the absolutely fantastical. Over the centuries, scholars and researchers have proposed a variety of explanations, each attempting to make sense of the mystery while respecting the historical and cultural context of the time.
So AR, I just want to clarify so we don't spread misinformation. There's been no reports that these children were jolly. No reports at all that they were jolly. You're just spreading pseudoscience in my chat, AR. Come on now.
One of the more grounded theories suggests that the children were in fact the descendants of Flemish immigrants who had settled in England during the 12th century. The Flemish people, who came from what is now Belgium and the Netherlands, were often persecuted and driven from their homes by political turmoil. Some historians speculate that the children might have come from a nearby Flemish settlement that had been attacked. Their green skin could have been the result of malnutrition or
because this is in the 13th century, right? So you have to keep in mind that England, or what we think of as England, wasn't like a united front, right? It was there was constant colonization and war. Yes, Bree, clothing color can change the appearance of my eyes and color as well. Yes, or my eye color as well. Yes, that's me too. Theo is team brown eyes. I'm gonna make you brown eyes. I think brown eyes are so beautiful. Brown eyes are beautiful. All human eyes are beautiful. I love that humans have such a variety of eye shades. Yeah, it is hard not to be an asshole. Maybe they came from Greenland. Yeah, there we go.
illness. In this interpretation, the children's strange language was simply Flemish, which the villagers of Woolpit would not have recognised. Another theory...
So, here's the thing, right? They say the people wouldn't have recognized it, but when we look at the map, okay, so people right over here spoke Flemish, right? There were Flemish people, because here's Belgium, right? In the Netherlands. This is the region that the Flemish folks generally came from. So they would have been just across this little strait, and there would have been mainland trade. I mean, obviously, here's Dover, right? That's the main European port at the time. But, all these ports would have worked because people would have been coming back and forth from all over. So to say that people from here wouldn't know the language of the people from here, at least wouldn't be familiar with them having this weird language, and not enough to say, hey, maybe they're speaking the language of the people across the sea. That's sus to me. That's sus. I'm just going to close this because I keep clicking on it. There we go.
Theory posits that the children were suffering from a condition known as chlorosis, or green sickness, often said to be a form of anemia caused by poor diet. This condition can cause the skin to take on a greenish tint, supposedly, particularly in malnourished children. The children's diet in St. Martin's Land may have been severely limited, leading to their green skin, which faded as they began to eat a more varied diet in Woolpit. More speculative theories suggest that the children may have come from a hidden, isolated community, possibly located underground or in a remote, uncharted area. This theory draws on the children's descriptions of St. Martin's Land, with its dim light and strange customs. Some have even suggested that the children might have been from another world.
When you say a malnourished child looks green, I don't even want to pull up these pictures. They're horrible. But it's not green like that. It's green like, I can't even look at them anymore. It's green like a sickly green, like how you turn green when you feel sick. That's the kind of green that you get when you're malnourished like that. Not lime green Hulk skin, not Grinch. You don't turn into the Grinch or Kermit the Frog. Yeah. This little girl was like, it ain't easy being green, so then she wasn't.
Entirely. Perhaps visitors from a parallel dimension or an extraterrestrial civilization. Folklorists have also explored the possibility that these children were connected to the fairy traditions of medieval England. In many stories, fairies are depicted as otherworldly beings who live in hidden realms.
Yo, the blue fugates. Yeah, I know the blue fugates from Appalachia. That was, yeah, we'll have to talk about them sometime, too. So we got green children in the UK. You got blue children in the US. You got black-eyed kids everywhere.
Often accessed through caves and forests. The children's sudden appearance in...
Hey, my unfinished journey. Appreciate you. Thank you for promoting my content across social media. I really do appreciate it. You all should... Everybody should be like my unfinished journey and just, like, post... Like, every time I got something live coming up, you share it on all your social media accounts and demand that your followers come watch me.
Woolpit, along with their strange behaviour and otherworldly appearance, has led some to interpret the story as a manifestation of fairy folklore. The tale of the green children has persisted through the centuries, inspiring countless retellings and interpretations. It's been adapted. So,
right-handed Sith says, the common person didn't travel much unless you lived in a trade city. You mostly only knew your birth language. Even 10 miles is enough to separate. But yeah, you didn't really travel much more than like 30 miles from the place you were born at this time. Most people didn't, unless you were like a merchant or something. But trade did come to your little village from these places. And trade would have came from mainland Europe. And trade would have come from mainland Europe along with knowledge of the fact that they spoke. Not necessarily that the people would have known the language, but that there was a different language, right? That there were other languages that these children could be speaking. Well, that's my point. I guess that's my point on this one.
Adapted into literature, art, and even modern media, with each generation finding a new meaning in the mystery. The story's themes of otherworldliness and survival and the unexplained continue to resonate, particularly in a world where the boundaries between the known and the unknown are constantly shifting.
And I mean, there's a lot of fairy folklore and stuff
Has it been accurately
or would have been evoked about this too, because this was a part of the world that was very steeped in fairy lore,
faithfully represented in its retellings. I don't know about you, but I cannot read Latin. And really, if we want to understand this tale, we need to read the Latin text.
Me either. I need to get Ben in here. Ben can read some Latin.
First hand, don't we? I can find the Ralph of Coggeshall text on the Internet Archive. What a fabulous place. And there is a preface in the book that is in English. I like the sound of this other story about Malkin, but maybe this one's for another video, look. Of a more dubious character are the wild stories about the merman captured at the Sea of Orford, of the green boy and girl, and of the house haunted by the familiar spirit called Malkin. Let's see if we can find anything about that for another video. The section dealing with the...
Malkin, I know Grey Malkin was the name of the cat. Is that Hamlet? The witch's cat, yeah. So Malkin means cat, in like the old like Briton, I guess that would be. Britannian. Well, because even Britannia has Roman origins. It's not native to the island, right? Britannia, Britain in general, the British Empire. It's not like a native empire. I mean, they're native now, naturalized or whatever. But there were people that had been living there for thousands of years before the Romans came, right? Who had their own languages and their own cultures and things like that, and lived in different village settings, different clan settings, different ways of life that might have been completely alien to the folks in this village in Woolpit if someone was traveling with their kids and their kids got lost, right? I'm not saying that's what happened, but there's a lot of factors that could come into play for this.
Green Children is titled De Quodam Puero et Pue de Terra Emergentibus. And I know I said I don't read Latin, and clearly I don't speak it either. I gave it a shot, you guys. Anyway, I'm obviously going to run this through some online translation tools to see what we can determine from the original reports. And if anything has been misreported...
That is the great thing about living in modern times, is we can take like Latin, old Latin words, and we can run them through a system that'll translate it for us as best as possible and try to give us some kind of idea what's being said.
In subsequent retellings. I can't vouch for the accuracy of the tools I will use, but we'll have to try something, won't we? So, here's one translation. Another male...
Who's your buddy? I blame the church for that. That's why. Latin was the language of the scholars at this time in the UK. I think at this time there would have still been like some pagan influences on the fringes, but things would have been heavily Catholic at this time.
Novel, not unlike the previous one, occurred in Suffolk at St Mary's of Woolpit. A certain boy, along with his sister, was found by the inhabitants of that place near the edge of a pit which is located there. They had the appearance of all their body parts similar to other humans, but the colour of their skin differed from all mortals in our inhabited world.
There's some words that even me as a Romanic language individual, it's words that I can pick out just from what I know. Like homini means person, right? Similim, the same. There's color. We see color there. We see habitat. We see viridi, which is green color. So even without the translator, there's some words we can pick out here to kind of get an idea what they're talking about. Just saying.
The entire surface of their skin was dyed with a green colour. No one could understand their language. These children were brought to the house of a certain knight, Lord Richard de Calne, at Wyke, where they cried inconsolably out of fear. Bread and other food were set before them, but they refused to eat anything that was offered, even though they were suffering greatly from hunger, because they believed that all such food was inedible, as the girl later confessed. At last, when beans, recently cut with the stalks, were brought into the house, they eagerly signalled that they wished to be
so it's just beans, not green beans, because you said green beans earlier, and green beans, as we've discussed, are not native.
given the beans. However, when the beans were brought before them, they opened the stalks, not the pods, thinking that the beans were contained in the hollow of the stalks. When they did not find the beans in the stalks, they began to cry again. Observing this, those present opened the pods and showed the beans, and when the children saw them, they ate them with great delight, not touching any other food for a long time. The boy, however...
Right there it says millet. So millet is... Oh, hold on, one L. That's two L's. Yeah, millet seed grain. So millet is not a bean, it's a grain, but they kind of look like beans, kind of like chickpeas. That's what they remind me of. But let me pull one up for you. So this is millet. And I can see like it's beany enough. Like I said, it's like a chickpea kind of. But that's the word I'm seeing. I could be wrong that that's what this word is. The predicti millet. Prediciti milletis. It makes me sound like they're saying that they would only eat millet. But sanguinem legume.
constantly seemed to be depressed by a sort of languor and died shortly after. The girl, on the other hand, eventually recovered fully, became accustomed to eating various foods, and gradually lost her green colour, regaining the usual complexion of her body. After being regenerated by the sacrament of holy baptism, she lived for many years in the service of the aforementioned knight, as we frequently heard from the
They claim that out of a cave. We'll get into it more. There's more, another version of this that he's going to read to us as well. This is just the first version. This is the more down-to-earth version of the story. The next one's kind of gets a little more out there. But did they climb out of the wolf pit from their underground world? Sort of. No.
Knight and his family. When frequently asked about the people of her country, she asserted that all the inhabitants and everything...
What is... fish eggs? That's grain. Prosos millet. It's a type of grain. It's not fish eggs. Stop it. Look. For anybody doubting me, millet is a type of grain. Looks like this on the stock. But I'm okay with them calling it beans, except for the thing is it's not held in a pod, so that's kind of weird. But I digress. I need to get through this.
In that region were tinged with a green colour, and that they did not see the sun,
I'm
but
going to speed our
enjoyed a
homie up a
certain
little bit,
dim
though.
light, like what occurs after sunset. When asked how she and the boy had arrived in this land, she responded that while following their livestock, they entered a certain cave. Upon entering, they heard the delightful sound of bells, and captivated by the sweetness of the sound, they wandered through the cave for a long time, until they came to its exit. When they emerged from the cave, they were overwhelmed and stunned by the brightness of the sun and the unfamiliarity of the atmosphere, and they lingered near the edge of the cave, almost in a state of shock. They lay in the caves, and when they were frightened by the disturbance of those who came upon them, they wanted to flee, but they could not find the entrance to the cave until they were captured by them. It's a short piece. I was expecting a big, long story, to be honest, but there it is. Interestingly, the area of Suffolk where Woolpit exists is characterised by its low-lying countryside, which is largely composed of chalk, clay, and other pretty soft sedimentary rocks that don't typically form large natural caves. Additionally here, the account says that the journey through the cave took a long time, whereas my initial leads into this story suggested otherwise, that the journey was almost instantaneous. The other text, the Historia Rerum Anglicarum, says this. There is a village in East Anglia said to be 4 or 5 miles distant from the noble monastery of the blessed king and martyr, Edmund. Near this village...
Now, there are caves in Essex. Caves in Essex. Lots of them, actually. I mean... No, that's not Essex. What are you doing? Anyway, yeah. But they're usually pretty shallow caves because of the limestone. But, I mean, obviously we have to go. Mullet is a type of fish. Mullet is a type of fish. Pretty sure I ran a D&D adventure back in the 90s. Language changed a great deal since then. It's possible that Militus back then was something different.
The ancient pits can be seen, which in English language are called wolf pits, and they give their name to the village to which they are adjacent. From these pits, during the time of harvest, when the reapers were occupied in gathering the crops in the fields, there emerged 2 children, a boy and a girl, entirely green in body and of an unusual colour, clothed in garments of unknown material. As they wandered in amazement through the field, they were captured by the reapers and taken to the village. Many people gathered to witness such a novelty. And for a few...
Calling the villagers that were going to capture them the reapers makes it sound so ominous. They're really like people cutting grain with the scythe. Called the reapers.
Few days they were kept without food. As they were nearly perishing from hunger and refused all the food that was offered to them, it happened that beans were brought in from the fields. They immediately seized them, but sought to find the beans inside the stalks, and finding nothing in the hollow of the stalks, began to cry bitterly. Then one of those present, opening the pods, offered the beans to them, which they readily accepted and ate. They lived on this food for several months, until they learned to eat bread. Finally, as the nature of our food prevailed, they gradually changed their colour and became like us, and they also learned to speak our language. It seemed wise to those who cared for them that they should receive the sacrament of holy baptism, which they did. However, the boy, who appeared to be the younger of the two, after living only a short time following his baptism, died an untimely death. The girl remained...
You probably, like... He was probably diseased from the baptism water. Like, they've done research that holy water that's like super, super gross and dangerous. Because of, everybody sticks their hands and their face and everything else into the holy water, so it's all contaminated. It's an easy way to pass diseases around your whole parish, right? Like plagues. Plagues can be facilitated by the church via baptism. Just food for thought.
Remained alive and in good health, and different in no way from the women of our race. It is said that she later married, and a few years ago, she was still alive. Now, not a lot else to go on, is there?
Our race, huh?
A huge amount of research.
What is our race? Or is he talking about the human race or the British race?
Research into this, however, has been done by Duncan Loonan, who published a book titled Children from the Sky. It's an evocative title, and it suggests extraterrestrial origins, of course. And whilst the research is impressive, and the speculation in there is absolutely fascinating, it is quite a tough read. The way the book is written is absolutely necessary to establishing this tale as a real event that happened to real people, but it is really, really heavy going. Nevertheless, it's a vital part of the puzzle for anybody interested in this tale. So a lot of what I'll now discuss is largely influenced by that research and is augmented by my own speculation and questioning. Loonan makes a point of the following things which are either pertinent to the direction of this video will take or are at least of interest in the whole tale. Number one, the girl apparently claimed that in her land not everything is actually green, only the things that are safe to eat. My question there is, if it's things that are safe to eat, then why are the people green as well? Number two,
because they're soylent green people. Soylent green people. You can eat them.
Children actually did not say they were herding the cattle. The direct translation from the Latin text is that they said they were following the cattle.
Was it cattle? Because if are they confirming that there are cows that live in this subterranean world? Are these fairy cows? Because there are fairy cows in folklore, and they're actually dangerous to try to take them.
And Loonan places great importance on the difference between herding and following. Number three, chlorosis, widely said to be a possible cause for the green skin, is a disease that is questionable and might actually be a catch-all term for anemia and anorexia and depression in adolescents. Number four, the children were actually well at the point they were discovered because they subsequently survived a period of starvation where they wouldn't eat anything. Number five, in Greece and Rome, a well-known way to defend yourself against evil spirits is to spit beans at them. Pliny's Natural History said that the souls of the dead resided in beans, and Japan has a similar custom of throwing beans at demons to get them out of your house and usher in good fortune. Number six, Woolpit was not some isolated country bumpkin village. It was a transport and trade hub, meaning that villagers would likely recognise the dialects of a wide range of European languages, maybe not well enough to speak in those tongues.
Now that's what I was saying, yeah, that people should have been able to, not necessarily say that they would understand the Flemish, but they were close enough to a Flemish trade route, right? Or at least a Belgium trade route, where imports that have gone through Belgian customs and would have, papers with Belgian text on them and things like that as far as the shipping records go. These people would have been familiar with the existence of these other cultures, right? And these other languages. But I do kind of wonder why is this Elphaba?
Probably well enough to recognise them. At least if the villagers had spent enough time with the Flemish people to be able to have enough of a hatred towards them that they persecuted them, then they would recognise bits of the lingo. Nobody recognised the language that these children were speaking. Number seven, the Latin text says that the children's skin was dyed green. Number eight, there are to be found factual, fictional and speculative versions of this tale. Number nine, subsequent retellings of the account impose their own theories onto the subject. And number 10, Loonan admits, so does he. And in fact, so shall I, in this video. And whilst Loonan goes into extraordinary factual and speculative detail, I can't possibly spend the time digesting it all. There are multiple threads and dead ends in the book, and honestly finding a cohesive outcome is really, really difficult, I find. But then again, this channel is all about the what if, isn't it? So be aware that my research is far-reaching, but
that's a possibility too. Ancient child trafficking. I mean, it's more likely that they were... my speculation is that these people were children of like a trader from somewhere Mediterranean. That's my speculation. I don't have any proof of that. That's just, the most logical thing that I can think of.
Cursory, and my understanding might not be the most solid, but that's what the comment section is for, isn't it? For your theories and your facts to be offered up, and not just to mock my accent. There's more to the tale, and it was provided supposedly by the girl herself when she had eventually grown and married and become a functioning member of society. Not only that, but it appears she occupied some position of authority. When she was later asked about the people of her country, she swore on oath that all the inhabitants and plants there were dyed with the colour green. She said that they came from the land of St. Martin. we are people of the land of St. Martin, who of course in the land of our birth is held in the very highest exceptional respect. We remember this much, because on a certain day we were driving to...
So the fact that they would have a saint makes me think that, oh, yeah, she's insisting that these underground kingdom was Catholic, which is, yeah, a little bit out there.
Pasture, adding to our father's animals in the fields, we heard a certain great sound which we now are accustomed to hear at St. Edmund's when they say the bells are ringing. And when we turned our minds to that sound, which surprised us, suddenly, unawares, as if placed in some loss of mind, we found ourselves in the field where you were reaping. When they were asked if they believed in Jesus and whether the sun rose, they said that the land was Christian and had churches, but the sun, they said, of our countries does not rise. And
oh, Dave says, my mother told a story about my aunt babysitting me and freaked out because I pooped green peas. It was peas, yeah. I remember when I was a little kid and we had a puppy and it ate a box of crayons and it pooped rainbows for a couple of days and it was fantastic. I was so excited about it. I mean, looking back now, it's like, ew, but yeah. I thought it was just the coolest thing ever.
And our country is little lit by its rays, but it is satisfied with that measure of light, which with you precedes sunrise or follows sunset. Moreover, far off a certain bright land is seen, not far from our land, with a very broad river dividing the two. Ralph de Coggleshaw says she was in the employ of Edward de Calner as Ministerio Praedicti Militis, translated as she remained in the service of the aforementioned knight, which Lunan suggests probably means she was an estate manager or manor house keeper, given that ministerio is where we get today's words minister and ministry from, and therefore are not analogous to a job such as a cleaner or a maid. This position is then used to bolster Lunan's opinions around the origins of the girl, and that it had been claimed that she was merely a runaway from some savage English...
So she took like a church position is kind of what I'm picking up on here, which makes sense because a lot of orphans will find themselves leaning heavily into the charity of the church at this time, right? Basically completely dependent on it until they can support themselves. So it makes sense that that someone who was raised by such charity might want to pay that forward by participating and becoming part of the ministry itself. Just a thought.
Tribe. The fact that she was able to learn language, obtain a high position on the knight's estate, suggests that her intelligence is advanced and therefore the savage theory is less likely. I assume it's Latin that she learned as well as English, and this led to a whole new life, and she was christened in the Christian faith, which means...
Good morning, Rainbow Wrath. Good morning.
She would have been given a name, and this has been put forward by various publications across the centuries as Sally, Barbara, Peregrine, Adela, and Elderflower. The author...
Elphaba. Elphaba is her name. We all know the story. Elphaba.
Lunan, after a meandering but admittedly necessary trip through property and marriage records, comes to the conclusion that the girl was probably christened as Agnes, a real person with real records. She existed. She was married, apparently, to a Richard Barr, an archdeacon.
Strange skies.
But here's where things get weird. In particular, Lunan sets out his stall by talking in depth, not about the children particularly at first, but rather about a book by Robert...
So glad to hear that, Native Atheist. Which one did you get? Which shirt did you pick out? I've sold the Bigfoot and the Mothman ones are the most popular, for sure. The Fresno Nightcrawler one is for a limited time only because that's going to be going to go off the market in June for the Roswell shirt that's coming out.
Robert Burton from 1621 titled The Anatomy of Melancholy, in which, among many other subjects, is a discussion about meteorology and astronomy. The author was particularly interested in contemporary theorists, proving that the planets were actual worlds, showing therefore that space could be navigable and was a medium that was traversable, rather than, from what I can gather, was a prevailing theory that the lights in the sky were some sort of crystalline shells suspended or held in a solid substance. This meant that space travel, therefore, was probably possible. And
That's kind of a cool that they were like thinking about that stuff way, way, way back then. You think it was Mothman. Awesome. The Mothman shirt is amazing. And I made that myself. I just cut up parts of different Mothmen from different places, put together. I use Inkscape to make those. All of them are, I don't want to say it's original art because they're made up of bits and pieces of other pieces of art that have been tweaked and adjusted, but I guess it's a collage kind of. But yes, please order some Cryptic Corner shirts. Deep Arcs has an amazing Mothman shirt. Dave has the Swamp Booger Bigfoot shirt. I think somebody ordered a Jersey Devil shirt and somebody else ordered a Mothman shirt, but I'll have to look. But There's been a few ordered. They're not like flying off the shelves or anything, but yeah, I'm glad you all appreciate them and are getting are ordering them, because I did put so much love into making them. So
it so happens that at the time of the discovery of these children, there were other strange things happening in the sky and other events that related to their arrival. Auroral displays, something referred to as an odd unmoving stare, and an account of a crescent moon that seemingly opened at one end of the arcs and spewed out a load of flame into space, and distorting the lower crescent, making it appear to wind about like a snake. You can speculate at will on what these things might have been. Now, this is all told in a chapter titled Making an Impact with King Henry, and having listened to an interview with Lunan, I know where he's going with this, but again, I have to say this book, it just meanders.
Say what? The moon spit out green flames, and it turned all the kids green, probably.
It's off into hyper explanation, and you'd soon forget what the point of what you're reading is.
Yes, yeah. There's tons of cool just Hive Sci logo shirts. They got the classic bee and the classic tarantula shirt, the classic hornet and the classic tarantula shirt, and then we also have the pride socks. So I think I'm probably going to get me some of those pride socks.
Though I love to indulge in that level of research myself, but I know it's far too much for somebody watching a video. So yes, it's a criticism, but it's one made through admiration of the work. So what's all this got to do with King Henry then? Well, to give you the gist of it, it seems that King Henry had a real interest in this kind of thing. He viewed Woolpit as a particularly active area, and indeed at one point annexed the village. Now this confused me at first because I assumed the king just owned everything, but in those feudal times the area was probably under the control of a nobleman or religious institution or something. So he was keen enough to have first dibs on this area that he saw as being of particular interest.
Well, there's like generally there was like a landlord, right? And he leased plots out to serfs, and they toiled in those fields, and these people, the reapers were reaping grain, the hunter was hunting, the fisherman was fishing, whatever, but they all paid fealty to a lordship who actually was the lord of that land. That's where we get the term landlord from.
In the scope of strange things happening in the sky. So you can absolutely bet London to a brick that he heard about the green children. In fact, Lunan is positive that Henry was in fact expecting something to happen and had made backup plans in his known absence in some war that he was fighting, that Richard de Calne would take charge of anything odd that happened in that area. From there,
I don't know if there were any Muhammad sightings when the moon opened up and spit green fire. That would make sense, though. That would check out.
So many threads, both in the book and in other media concerning the case, the assimilation of the girl into the greater family of King Henry on one side, the possibility of the children being accidentally returned to Earth from an Earth-like planet upon which thousands of abducted humans have lived for centuries on another, the possibility of the children just being Flemish immigrants, or the even more grounded theory that the kids were just actually from the next village over, which, coincidentally, happened to have a church called St. Martin's in it. All these ingredients, these weird kids, the bells, the caves, the aristocracy, odd things in the sky, they're all at once everything, and yet they are nothing. They're just a melange of tantalising pools in which to swim and languish in search for an answer. Yet Lunan's book is full not only of his own opinion, but extracts of other publications, conversations which he's had with other people, and quotes from yet more. So it's not my job, nor at all is it within my grasp, if I'm honest, to give you a definite answer on what Lunan's conclusion really is. The book is an utter work of...
There is no conclusion. If there was a conclusion about what was up with the Green Children of Woolpit, we wouldn't be talking about it right now, because that's not how we do Hive Sci. That's not how we do Cryptic Corner. We want to dive into the mystery.
Genius. It's mad genius, in fact. And this might actually be a commentary on my level of intelligence, but here goes. I didn't get it. My curiosity was massively intrigued by this notion of the children being transported from another Earth-like planet, which was derived largely from listening to Lunan talk. But then in his book there is this specific paragraph that states, "But it is important to shed the idea that the children might have been alien," which somebody persists in adding to my Wikipedia page. But then in the section of the book titled The Final Conjecture, he lays out a clear timeline of first contact with some beings, beginning in BC 10,500, leading to the arrival of the Green Children as the result of some sort of error involving unexpected interactions.
See, my thoughts is that this has just had fairy lore attached onto it, right? Living in the underground where fairies live. That's in the UK. That was the generally accepted idea, was that the fairy kingdom was underground. There were there's lots of cairns and portals and doorways into the fairy world all over the UK, especially in Wales, but something like that in Essex isn't that far removed, at least as far as folklore is concerned. And then just attaching a whole lot of other characteristics onto the story as it goes on, you end up playing the game of telephone
between matter transmitters and magnetic fields, and rounds it off with this. I can scarcely believe what I'm looking at. Mass abductions by extraterrestrials for experimental purposes, with the knowledge, connivance, and even support of some of the authorities of the day, the X-Files in the 12th century. I find the case fascinating, frustrating, amazing, and baffling. I urge you to read the book, hard as it is to get through. Buy it on Kindle, it's a couple of quid. I urge you to seek out the other videos on this and the literature on this. If Lunan really has managed to trace the records of this green girl as being a real married person in adulthood, and if that girl was indeed from some other world, then this is utterly mind-blowing. Find out what you can,
For real.
and come back to this video and comment on it and let me know. Hit the like button, please. Hit the thumbs up button in the corner there. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and share this video with your friends and all that good YouTube stuff. Bye for now.
All right, so that was the Green Children of Woolpit, as presented by Eerie Vault Strange Encounters UK. And yeah, I'm going to subscribe because there's more stories here that may be of interest to us. They have stuff we've covered before, like the Stand Down Clown and the Gnomes of Woolton. We've covered those. Did you all, if you haven't seen those videos, yeah, the Stand Down Clown was one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite UK cryptids of all time. It's right up there behind Geoff the Talking Mongoose, or Jeff the Talking Mongoose. Yeah, but what do you think? I mean, Hive, let's kick the ball into your corner. What do you think the story behind these Green Children of Woolpit was? What do you think caused them to have this skin coloration? Where do you think they came from? What folklore do you think is derived from that? Tell us in the comments down below. Anxious to hear your input, but please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.